If you're thinking about moving from the Northeast to Greenville, South Carolina, there's a lot of things you need to know. We've helped over 100 plus families relocate to Greenville, South Carolina, a lot of them being from the Northeast. What we found, there's a lot of differences, some really great and some that will take some time getting used to that you really should know about. So let's dive into all that in this video. The first area where we want to start this discussion is with real estate. This tends to be one of the biggest positive surprises for people that are moving from the Northeast to this area. What people tend to really find is that they spend significantly less on housing. Not only do they spend less on housing, they spend a lot less on property taxes. I have people that will spend significantly 10-20% of the total amount that they spend on property taxes from where they came from in South Carolina. South Carolina, when you look at rankings for property taxes, tends to be in the top 10 of the most affordable property tax states in the country. So that is a huge advantage when it is your primary residence. Another thing that people find with real estate here is that there's a lot more new construction in our area than maybe where they're coming from. Of course, this is a case-by-case basis, but we're seeing a lot of new construction that's happening in the Greenville area. We just have more available land than some of the places that people are coming from. Now, since I want to make sure that I'm telling you the truth, there's 3 things that I have found about real estate that takes some time to get used to compared to what people are accustomed to in the Northeast. First, basements are nowhere near as common here as they are in the Northeast. What you see here is all basements tend to be above ground because we're close to the water table, and of course we get a lot of rain and humidity. So that's something you see less common, the topography, so the slope of the land has to really fit for a basement home. So you just see a lot less of them. The second thing, what I find is there's a lot of areas in the Northeast where there are strict zoning rules where you have to have multiple acres per property. You don't find that as much here in the Upstate. Some of the homes can be a little bit closer together than what people are coming from rural areas of like New Jersey and New York, where you're getting multiple acres on your property, and that's just a standard. There are tons of opportunities in the area to buy homes with acreage, but it's not the same, whereas in some of those areas that I mentioned where there's some more rural areas where there's those requirements, so it's just as commonly found. You have to actually search for it, and that has to be one of your requirements in your search. The third thing is HOAs tend to be more common here than what people see in the Northeast. They also tend to have a significantly lower cost to be in those HOA neighborhoods. Most HOAs, now it totally varies, and there's some that are outside of this, but they'll cost somewhere from $400 to $850 per year. Not per month. I know some people are spending that monthly for HOA dues. We don't tend to see that here. Some of the covenants tend to be a little bit more lenient as well. So those are some nuances and some differences to know as far as real estate is concerned. Before we finish with the real estate topic, there's 2 things that are just little quirky facts that you should know about, because I pretty much get this from everyone. Typically in the winter here, the grass goes dormant. It's not dead, it goes dormant, with most homes having Bermuda grass. There's another type of grass in the area, but most people have Bermuda. It will go dormant in the winter, no matter what. It'll pop back up, look green as can be during the spring and summer months. So that's the first thing you need to know. The other thing to know is that we have red clay as our soil here. A lot of people ask me, what's all that orange stuff on the house? Or what's all that orange stuff on the ground? And why is the ground so hard here? It's because of the soil that's here. So just keep that in mind. Now let's talk about culture and community. This is something my team and I have a lot of conversations with people just like you who are relocating to the area about. They typically want to know about the festivals that are in town. What is it like in certain communities, and how do people gather together, and what are the churches like, and so many other factors. What we found from helping all of our clients that have relocated here, that have been really seeking out that community and culture vibe and have done the proper research and kind of decided what they're looking for, they really love the Upstate. They love the Greenville area. It really fits their needs. They find that the community really gets together a lot. The weather really accommodates for allowing people to do outdoor festivals, everything from farmers markets to, we have a food festival, to we have something called Fall for Greenville, where there's a huge fall festival with bands and food and so much other stuff. People really love that. They find that their communities get together. Maybe they bring in a food truck every other week or once a month in the summer or whatever. They really find that they can build that connectivity that they're looking for, and they find that they can find a great church home. They find that they can really find friends in the community, and that they just really love that. And they experience the Southern hospitality where they feel like people are friendly. Of course, everyone is looking for something different. That may not be what you're looking for. For people who are searching for that, they tend to find that they can find that here and that they really love it. A couple other things to know about is college football is huge here. You don't tend to hear people talk as much about pro sports. We've got 2 college teams that people are super passionate about, the Clemson Tigers and the South Carolina Gamecocks. Those are the two in-state rivals, and it is a huge rivalry that happens every year around Thanksgiving. So you're gonna hear people talk a lot about college sports and college football specifically. Other thing, don't be shocked if someone says ma'am or sir to you. That is part of the culture here. That is something that a lot of people will teach their kids at a very young age. Two other things that you should really know about the area. First, let's talk about the school systems. So what you can find here is you can live in Greer and you could be zoned for 3 or 4 different school districts. So that throws people off. People are used to, I live in this town and this is the school system that they come from most of the people that I've talked to. So that's one thing that you should know about. The second thing is the neighborhood mix. Some people are used to, this area of town is really meant for these type of people. The homes are, anywhere from this price to this price. And what Greenville tends to be is you see a lot more blending of culturally, economically, socioeconomically, where people are all blended in together. You'll see really nice neighborhoods that could be from 300,000, and you'll see multi-million-dollar neighborhoods that are right next to it. So you see a little bit more of that blend here than what some people might be accustomed to, where things are a little bit more uniform, where all the prices are kind of somewhat in a similar range and ballpark. Now let's talk about the weather. This is something that I find that most people really enjoy if they're thinking about relocating down south compared to where they're coming from in the Northeast. They get to ditch that snow blower. You might get 1 or 2 snowfalls a year. Sometimes you don't get any, and when you tend to get them, they're really minor. The only thing to know about that, we don't have the salt trucks and all the equipment to handle a snowstorm like you do in the Northeast. And some of this, again, is coming from all of our client experiences. Another thing I should point out, my wife actually grew up in the Northeast in Pennsylvania, so have some experience with her and her family and just kind of knowing some of these nuanced differences. Overall, like I mentioned, the winters are going to be much more mild. You're going to get a longer spring. You're going to get more days with sunshine, not that darker cloudiness. You get kind of more of that blue sky. In the summer, you're going to see more thunderstorms. It'll be scattered throughout. Basically, the weather forecast is going to look like potential for an afternoon thunderstorm throughout the entire summer. You do have a hot, humid summer here, but I know in a lot of places in the Northeast you experience that as well. For a lot of the golfers out there, the good news is most people can golf all 12 months out of the year. Golf courses will be open. Overall, there should be some great playability. You can find some really great courses to play. For the gardeners, people find that they can start getting outdoors in February or March much earlier than maybe where they came from, and they have a longer season. Here in the Upstate, the severe weather that you normally will experience will be more lightning and thunderstorms. We did unfortunately have Hurricane Helene that did come up, but that was a really unique scenario where we're so far off the coast that shouldn't be as common. So you can kind of not experience some of those things that people may be used to if they're living on like the East Coast and closer to the water. Now, it's not all 100% positive. There's 2 things you should know about. In the spring, we do get a lot of pollen. That's why we have beautiful trees. That's why we have the green grass. We have all the sunshine, but it does come with pollen. So that's something you should know about. When you move here, you might experience 1 to 2 really rough allergy seasons. Some people, it doesn't impact them at all. Other people, it impacts a little more. Next thing, because we have all this sunshine and rain, there are more bugs here. That is something that people become accustomed to. Now, you can get a treatment for this, have someone come every quarter. The other thing just to know about, and some people don't experience this in their specific location, is that we do have termites here. So I always recommend that buyers get a termite inspection when they buy a house, and that they get something called a termite bond, which is insurance coverage and also a treatment to be preventative from termites. Now let's talk about traffic and transportation. Now, I will say traffic is completely subjective to someone's experiences. I find this to be really common, whereas people might move from really small rural towns, they move to Greenville and they find, oh man, there's more traffic here than I'm used to. Or you find the opposite, where people move from really large metro cities and they say, you're talking about traffic? This is absolutely nothing. This is just a normal Tuesday at 10 a.m. for me, even when we're in high peak traffic time. So it's totally subjective. There's 2 other things that you might need to get used to if you're coming from a bigger city in the Northeast. The first is that a car is really needed to do everyday life in Greenville. Now, there are some areas where that may not be the case, but for the most part, most people are going to have a vehicle to do their everyday life. The second factor when we talk about a car is just there's a little bit less walkability compared to the big metro cities. Now, when you get to downtown Greenville, it is extremely walkable, but most people are going to drive a car. They're going to find an Uber or Lyft, whatever. They're going to find some way of getting into downtown, and then they're going to walk when they get there. There doesn't tend to be as much where people are walking to the grocery store, walking to local shops, walking to restaurants, breweries. There are some options for that, but overall, they tend to not be very expansive. It's not like the whole area here is highly walkable where you can do all those things and not have a car. When we think about transportation, it's not all negative. What I find is a lot of people will say that gas prices are significantly lower than where they're coming from, and they save a lot of money on car insurance as well. A lot of times even homeowners insurance, which I didn't mention before. Now let's talk about shopping, food, and just everyday life. The first thing that you may want to know is you're not going to find that same level of pizza that you might be accustomed to. There's some good pizza here, there's some great places to go, but that is one thing that I do hear when people are really used to that like New York style pizza. Overall, people will say it's due to the water. No, there are some people who say there is some better pizza here than they've had back home, but that's just something you might want to be aware of. You're not going to also see as many Italian bakeries where people are doing the bagels, the hoagies. You don't see as much of that here. There are some places that have it, but it's not a place on every street corner like what you might see in the Northeast. Some things to know that are really popular here, you're going to find some really amazing barbecue restaurants. Don't be shocked if you see people serving shrimp and grits at the restaurant that you go to. Seafood tends to be a pretty popular choice in a lot of restaurants here as well. Another thing to know that sweet tea is one of the drinks of choice here in the Southeast. One other thing, if you're coming from a larger city, you might find that things shut down a little bit earlier here than where you might have come from. And you might even see that some restaurants and places are not open on Sunday for religious reasons, and then some places Monday just maybe because of lower traffic. So just make sure that if you're moving here and you're thinking about going somewhere, check Google, check the restaurant's website, make sure that they're actually open for the hours and the days that you want to go. Now, if we go back to businesses, services, what a lot of people tell our team when they relocate to other areas is they're like, I cannot believe how friendly everyone is. Whether it is just talking to someone at a local restaurant, or they met this service provider, this contractor, they met someone out on the streets, just in Main Street. Like, that is one of the things that we most commonly hear is like, I just cannot believe how friendly people were, how much time they gave me, how they did this, how the customer service is so great. So that's something that people really tend to love, especially people relocating from other parts of the country where they might just not be accustomed to that. There are some potential negatives. If you're used to getting in the store and getting out, the cashier that's going to talk to you for a minute and ask you about your day, that may be a little off-putting for you at first. So it's just something just to be aware of, that is part of the culture here and that is part of the expectations. The other thing is things tend to move a little bit slower in the South. Like I said, things are closing earlier. There tends to be a little bit less of a hectic lifestyle. As Greenville continues to grow, some of those expectations are going to change over time, but overall, Greenville went from a small southern town to now it's growing to even larger. And some of that will ultimately shape what these culture and service expectations are. But overall, what it seems like over the past few years is the friendliness is something that is here to stay in the Greenville area. It continues to be ranked as one of those friendliest places to live in the US. So there you have it, several different ways that the different aspects of your life can be different here in Greenville compared to the Northeast. Of course, everyone's experience is unique, but these are just the common things that we find from people whenever they relocate here. The people that we've helped, they've really loved it. They have really said this is a really wonderful place for them. They've taken the time to, talk to our team, learn about the different areas, do a tour. They've spent time in research, and they made sure that this was the right place for them, and they found that it was, and they absolutely loved it here. So if you're one of those people that would love these kind of changes, go ahead and reach out down below. There's a link to schedule a call so we can talk through everything and answer any specific questions that you might have. We'd love to help make your move to Greenville as stress-free and seamless as possible.